Welcome to Real Talk, Texas. Bet you guys have all enjoyed a great 4th of July weekend, kicking back, eating burgers. I hope you've had the kind of weekend that you really wanted for 4th of July. And with that in mind, I started thinking, hey, it's 4th of July weekend, starting to get relaxed, get away from work a little bit, and just kind of get a feel for what retirement might really be like. And so we thought we'd bring on Dr. Carl Howe again with Valtrust Capital Partners. They're a registered investment advisory firm. And I'd bring Carl in and just talk about retirement. And so if you're getting that feel, you've been out there all weekend, you're starting to feel like, wow, I kind of like this. You might want to start getting prepared for that. And I think this is a great time for us to talk about what are the moves you need to make. How do you need to get there from a working world to retirement? Or if you're retired now and you wish you had better cash flow, those are things that Carl works on. Carl, tell me a little bit about, you got in, if you didn't hear Carl on our show a few weeks back, I'd like to introduce you to some of our listeners who may not have heard you, about a month ago when you were on the show.
Right.
Yeah. But tell me a little bit about your firm, how you got into business and all those things.
Well, that's really interesting. First off, I want to bring up, and thank you, I want to bring up our website address. It's retirementfoundationgroup.com, and you can go to our website. We have a lot of interesting videos in there on retirement, and that's what we specialize in. We specialize in working with retirees and pre-retirees, those people who are planning to retire and just wanting to make sure that they're going to have enough income in retirement to maintain their lifestyle. And so we look at ways to do that, and we offer a second opinion review over their current retirement plan, where we do an analysis, kind of a holistic approach where we look at it and see where their assets are now, what's the risk that they're taking with their assets as far as how much market risk, and is that money going to be there when they need it. And we look at 4 avenues of retirement. We look at basically their estate plan. We work with independent estate planning attorneys to make sure that their current estate plan is going to meet their needs to distribute their assets when they're gone and while they're living. If they become sick, they want to make sure that they have proper documents in place to protect them from guardianship or conservatorship. Then we look at financial planning to make sure that, again, making sure they don't have too much market risk. People are living longer. That's one of the problems with retirement now. People are living longer, and their assets have got to last as long as they do. And so we look at that, and then we also look at their tax plan. How much are they spending for their taxes? And lastly is healthcare planning. It's estimated that 7 out of every 10 retirees is going to need long-term care at some point in their life. Well, currently in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that could be easily $4,000 to $7,000 a month of assets you're going to have to pull out of your retirement just to pay for that care, because Medicare and the government's not going to be there unless you're broke. And then you go on Medicaid, and unfortunately, most people don't want to do that or cannot do that because you don't get the type of care you may want. So we look at ways to protect their assets from those types of risks. And before I get a little bit of my background, that's why we work with people like you, Steve, because you're in the mortgage business, and a lot of our clients have a really nice home, but they don't have a big enough nest egg to retire on, and we can work with people like you who can do a refinance, lower their interest rate, maybe pull out some equity for investments, but can lower their overhead in retirement so they can have that type of lifestyle that they want to maintain.
Well, one interesting thing about that is, say you've had somebody, they've been in their house for 15 years or whatever, they started with maybe a $400,000 loan. Now their loan's paid down, maybe it's paid down to $300,000, $250,000, and just by simply refinancing, doesn't really matter what the interest rate is. Now we're not refinancing at $400,000, we're refinancing at $250,000, and so their payment drops. So it helps their cash flow. So I've done that before with retirees, people getting ready to retire, because basically the bottom line is when you get ready to retire, you start looking at your budget very closely in the cash flow and what do you need to really live on. And everyone wants a comfortable retirement, and that's why we refer you guys.
Well, I just want to share a little bit of how I got actually into the financial industry. As you said, Dr. Carl Howe, I actually just go by Carl. I started out in the healthcare field in the North Dallas area back in the early 80s, and for the first part of my professional life, I enjoyed helping people. And that's why I got into the profession to begin with, was actually to help people. And then what happened was, about the mid-'80s, maybe the late 80s, this thing called managed care came on the surface. And managed care was basically where insurance companies started dictating the type of services that we could provide our clients. And so I would go to the insurance companies. I said, well, here's what I'm working with this client, this patient, and this patient needs this type of treatment. I said, well, no, we're going to offer you can do this type of treatment, or you can do this examination, or you can do these tests. I said, but they're not what's in the client's best or the patient's best interest. I'm already got my client and patient mixed up because I've been a financial professional for so long now. But anyway, what happened is that I asked them, I said, well, what's the deal? Why can't we give them what's in their best interest? They said, well, what we're telling you can do is suitable for their needs, and we'll look at further testing down the road. Well, it's very frustrating when you're used to being able to offer a patient what they need, and now all of a sudden you're being told, no, you got to pull back. And so I want to transition and just talk about the fact that I'm a baby boomer myself, and I'm looking at my retirement program, and I'm working with a broker at that time. And I've been with this broker for 10, 15 years, and it seems like I'm not getting any traction. I'm back to the starting gate. My income goes up, my assets go up, they go back, they go up, they go back, and they're subject to the risk that, of course, the market has. And I asked the broker, I said, well, I don't understand. Why are you putting me into these types of investments? Why are we doing this? And some of them were actually house accounts. The broker I was working with, they were actually proprietary accounts that firm offered, which actually bettered that firm. They were in favor of that firm. So I asked him, and he said, well, here's the thing, Dr. Howe. These investments we're making are suitable for you. I said, wait a minute, suitable? What do you mean? Suitable? Well, they meet your criteria. Well, I did a little more research, Steve, and I found out that brokers and registered representatives, they work on what's called a suitability standard, not necessarily a fiduciary standard, meaning putting your interests first, because they work for a firm and they have to put the firm's interests first. So they work on a suitability. Whereas a registered investment advisor, I'm bound by law to put my client's interests first. And I thought this is what I wanted to do in the healthcare field. Now I can do it in the financial field because baby boomers are getting older. We want to make sure that their assets are going to last as long as they need to.
Well, if you've just tuned in, you're listening to Real Talk Texas. Today in the studio, we've got Carl Howe of Val Trust Capital Partners, and we're talking about retirement. We're talking about kicking your feet up, figuring out how to make that so you really can relax when you retire, make sure your finances are in order. So you want to stay tuned. I'm going to drill down for Carl. I want to call you doctor. Carl Howe. We want to drill down on some certain areas. I know that you're listening, and I know that you're really eager to learn about what to do, how to position yourself right when you're ready to go in retirement. We're going to talk about how to make sure that you set up your Social Security correctly and have a good strategy behind that. We're going to talk about how to protect your assets. We're going to talk about using your 401k, and if you're still employed right now, how to set up your own pension plan, and some of the laws that have just been put into place in the last 3-4 years on that, and then also just overall retirement strategies and things like that. So you want to stay tuned. We've got some great retirement talk here on Real Talk Texas with our real expert, Carl Howe of Val Trust Capital Partners.